The Bernina 880 has an amazing function built in that allows you to pretty much hoop crooked. So this function is called pinpoint placement, and I'm going to show you what we're talking about by making one of these little tea towels with the sewingmastery.com logo on it, and not just stitching it out, but I am going to make a point to physically get this in the hoop crooked sideways, and I'm going to show you how I can perfectly line it up with the lines. Now, a lot of you have been looking at our Embroidery Essentials online course. This is one of our other samples. You can do so many different color combinations and even add a border, so it makes it a little bigger if you want. This is a course that will help you master some of these other functions that you just might not have taken the time to truly explore, like pinpoint placement and other techniques. There's actually 15 different embroidery techniques in here, but it's the act of actually doing them, working with the different functions on screen, is what's going to help you master your beautiful Bernina 180 sewing and embroidery machine. We also have our Bernina Stitching Cosmos online course. We've got all the links below in the description of this YouTube video, so check those out. Okay, so I have a USB stick in that I have moved our sewingmastery.com logo to. I've brought it up on the screen, and let me just show you what I've done for hooping. Number one, if you're going to work with a tea towel, make sure you pre-wash your tea towels before you do any embroidery. Next, I've just got 2 layers of kind of some water-soluble mesh stabilizer here. And I don't actually plan on hooping this. I sure could have, but I want to show you one other feature called basting in the hoop. So if you have to float a design, you can get it all set, and then it will stitch a basting box around the design or around the perimeter of the hoop. Whichever hoop you have selected to use, you'll actually go around the outside. So adhering the fabric to the stabilizer. So if you're doing any collars or cuffs or on the edge of a hat or gloves, oh my gosh, there's so many things that we really just can't hoop up. I've actually gone one more step, and I actually used a little 505 spray to spray the stabilizer in the middle of the hoop, and then I randomly laid this tea towel down on purpose sideways. So you can see my line, and you can see that it has been tilted. So this is what I want to show you is if you have something that is not hooped perfect, or you just can't get it to line up, or maybe something has actually come out of the hoop and you weren't done with it, or it accidentally came out of the hoop, you could hoop it back up, get really close, and then be able to fine tune to the exact point and make your design placed in the exact position so you can finish the embroidery. So this is a great feature, especially if you're ever using and quilting a quilt design. You can easily get in. You don't have to be perfect. Just kind of hoop the fabric, batting and back, and then just go ahead and twist the design to match your quilt block, or connect it if you're doing kind of an edge-to-edge quilting. So all those different topics can be used with this particular pinpoint function. So here's where we're going to start. We're going to touch the I for information and go down to where the pinpoint placement function is, and you're going to be brought into an area where I see we're already zoomed in. I was playing around just making sure we are doing this correctly, but that plus magnifying glass is going to be really the key to get in to select some of the different places. Now there's actually 2 ways to find the location on your fabric. You can use kind of this grid, and when you notice the grid, it kind of comes up with 9 different points. So you can use like a side corner and then this corner. So what we're going to do is we're going to first pick a point where we want to align it, and then we can set it, and then we can tilt it into position by choosing a different point that we're going to say line up with the line. My line's kind of angled like this, so when we're done, you're going to see my design angled, and it's going to be, I've kind of have it situated down here in this hoop. So I'm also going to need to center it as well on that crosshair. The other thing that you can do is actually use this butterfly with these points. Let me zoom in again. We can also just touch and drag and kind of slide around. And zooming in, you can really get to the exact location of your stitch. So if we need to line up this exact stitch, so for example, that was the last stitch you stitched before it came out of the hoop or before you had whatever happen, you could actually go back, physically pick that stitch, and then be able to move it to the exact location on your fabric where it needs to actually be. The knobs here are going to allow you to move it up, down, around, wherever this actually needs to be located on your fabric. Of course, you're going to be looking at where your needle is actually hovering when you are doing this step, and then you can set it and then be able to do that again with another location. Move it around, twist it into position. See, now it's actually rotating. You can see that it's tilting here. So we are tilting that into position. So you have a one step where you set it, and then another location where you tilt it on that first set. And then once you set it, you can come back out, and then your design is ready to stitch. Okay, so I'm going to go back in. We're going back to the eye, pinpoint placement. I'm going to push clear, and you're going to notice things just kind of deselect, and I'm going to use this function. And the reason for it is because I kind of need more of the center of the design, and then that way I can find those kind of points here. So I'm going to do my first one where I'm going to find the center, because that's kind of what I drew, is I drew a center line where I want the design to actually stitch. So here we go. Let's go ahead and move it down into position. So I'm bringing it all the way down to the line on my fabric. Now once I get there, I'm going to want to turn my hand wheel down and just see where that needle actually sits. So I'm not exactly on the line just yet. Roll that needle back so the needle comes all the way back to the highest position, and come down to and until it sits on that line. A little further, and we have it. Okay, so that's the first step. Once it's set, that's exactly what the set button's for. Set it in that exact location. Let's go ahead and zoom out, and then I can go ahead and select the other side of this, and I can see that my line is way up here. So now when I come in, let's go ahead and zoom in on this so you can kind of see what we're doing, is that now when we turn this, you're tilting it. So if I turn it to the left, I'm angling it down. If I turn it to the right, I'm angling it up. And I definitely have a long way to go here, so let me give it a good couple spins. And I'm watching my needle down here as I bring it up to the line that will be stitching on. Now, I don't know if the fabric has been centered left to right, so we'll be doing that next. I'm going to make sure that this design is centered on the fabric, so I don't have a tea-towel with a design slightly to the left or something. All right, so I'm liking where that needle's coming down right on the line, and I'm going to go ahead and set it. And you can kind of see that it puts a yellow border around the circle once it's been set. So I can go ahead and come out of pinpoint placement. This way you can see that the design has been located here, but I'm going to go into the hoop, and I want to find my center of the design, and the design itself will stay, angled because I've set those points. But if you look now, my needle's kind of off to the side of the center of my fabric. So now what I'm going to do is just go ahead and move it until I find myself centered on the design. How easy is that? So I'm going to come up just a little bit until I'm perfect, almost. I love that you can have such small increments when you're actually getting this all set up. Okay, before I stitch, I am going to put a little bit of water-soluble stabilizer over that general area where I'll be stitching. That helps keep the stitches from really sinking into the tea towel, and it's going to give it more of a raised look. So that's something I usually like to do. Of course, it's going to completely wash out at the very end, and nobody's going to ever see it, but it always looks better, trust me. So when you're ready to start stitching, touch the needle and thread. The basting function is going to be found on the sew out screen right here where the dotted box is. So you can actually do this two different ways. You can actually touch it once, and it will put an exact square or rectangle around your full-sized design, or if you touch it a second time, it will do a basting area the shape of your hoop. So right now we have that oval hoop in. It's going to stitch all the way around it. And you could actually do both. So you could start with the bigger all the way around the hoop stitching, the basting stitching, and then come back and then kind of find a way to hold our water-soluble stabilizer in place in the near vicinity of where we're actually stitching our design, and that will hold that little piece of stabilizer where it needs to be. I don't have to worry about it kind of catching when the first couple stitches get started. Once it starts to stitch, these stitches are really long. They are super easy to take out at the very end. If you have any needle holes left over from your basting box, a little quick steam or press, or even a wash, these are towels, so they could easily go back in the wash, and all or any of the remaining basting holes will disappear. That is one spot on design, even though our project was totally hooped crooked. So the only way that you're going to be able to master this part of your machine is to probably do a practice hooping crooked projects that will allow you to really try it out. If you mess up, you can figure out what went wrong and perfect this amazing feature in this machine. If this video has been helpful, make sure you give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And don't forget to check out all the links that we have for you below in the description, including the over 120 plus other videos that we have done on the Bernina 880.